entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, American Express picks, research, guess the odds, course preview, everything that you need to know about the tournament, starting with how many guys are playing. There's 156. The first full field tournament of the season, maxed out. Can't have any more than 156. We're back on continental U.S. soil for the first time in 2025, which means we get the worst viewing experience of any event throughout the course of the entire season. It is a 3-course rotation between the Nicklaus Tournament course, La Quinta, and the Stadium course, which is the host course. So all the players in the field will get to play each of the courses once. There is a cut after 3 rounds of the top 65 in ties. Then everyone else who remains after that cut line will play the Pete Dye Stadium course on the final day. It is worth noting that most of the good players in the field will start generally at La Quinta, which is the easiest of the 3 courses, and play their Saturday round at the Stadium course, which is the course that has both shot link. The other 2 courses do not, which sucks. And it's really the only one that has a full dedication of cameras on it as well. I know that devotees of the PGA Tour and in the weeds in betting and DFS over the years will vividly remember the 2017 American Express when Adam Hadwin was at La Quinta and shooting for a 59. They couldn't get cameras on him until his tee shot at number 17. That's the first time they were talking about, hey, Adam Hadwin's making a few birdies over at La Quinta. Finally, we got some visuals on the guy. They raced someone over, and he ended up shooting a 59 that day. Didn't turn out so great for him in the final round, but Adam Hadwin has actually been very good at this tournament over the years. You can use the Desert Course setting if you would like to try to figure out some of the other courses that go along with this, TPC Scottsdale being one, Vegas, RIP, the Shriners Open. There is no longer a tournament at TPC Summerlin, at least on the 2025 schedule, but you can go historically look back throughout the years and find that. But the 3-course rotation, the 3-round cut, and the most fun thing about this entire thing, it is a Pro-Am. Now, there's pros and cons of all of this. Now, Pebble Beach plays as a Pro-Am as well, but now that it's a signature event, I believe it's only the first 2 rounds is the Pro-Am, which actually opens things up for a better viewing experience on the weekend for Pebble Beach. But for this one, you don't have any of the celebrities. I mean, like Carlton from Fresh Prince might be there. I think Ray Romano, like George Lopez used to play in this thing all the time, but it's usually like the CFO of Sanderson Farms. And like you get linked to that, and you'll see a better field strength at the American Express versus most of these goober tournaments, because I think the guys are actually obligated to come play with whatever their main sponsor is. I think that's why they end up playing with it. The problem is, even though you only have 52 players on the course for each day, at least each of the first 3 days, the rounds still take like 6.5 hours because they actually play in foursomes because they all have to play with their amateur partner for the 3 rounds before you get into the final round on Sunday. So it's not a whole lot of fun to watch. And normally you only get to see most of the guys at the Stadium course. If the bigger names, like Xander, is playing La Quinta, he'll probably have cameras on him. But outside of that, if you're trying to track some of your long shots, and this is a long shot tournament, have fun with that. I've been using the Fantasy National app, but even the Fantasy National leaderboard app this week, it's going to take ShotLink from the course that has ShotLink, and it's going to be a little bit behind just like every other app is. You're not going to truly get that entire experience, which can actually prove to have some benefits in the betting market, because betting markets, due to the lack of ShotLink, do not react as quickly as maybe you can see in real time if you're going along with it. There's usually a delay. It's gotten better over the years, but usually like 3-4 minutes before they can truly adjust. The biggest example I can remember of this that I benefited, I hit Ted Potter Jr. to win Pebble Beach midway through the 3rd round when he was lighting up, I want to say Monterey Peninsula, when all the good players were playing at Pebble Beach, when it was the former Pro-Am, not the signature event, and he was on like he had like 8 birdies and 11 holes or something, and they were just hanging him at 125-1. He was 1 shot off the lead. In fairness, I didn't think that Ted Potter Jr. was going to outduel Dustin Johnson in the final round at Pebble Beach on Sunday, but his true odds should have been like 20-1 at that point. They were still hanging him at 125. So you can catch them off guard with longer shot players in that sense at the alternate courses because they're just not as in tune with what's going on. But let's take a look at the field this week at PGA West, and it's a pretty good one. Like I mentioned, it's usually all the same people at this tournament. That's why I ponder that You probably end up with the same people here every single year, the bigger names, because they're obligated to play. But Xander headlines the field. Scotty was going to play, but he is still injured at the moment. We got Xander, Burns, who still broke my heart after going in the water on 17 a year ago to lose to Nick Dunlap, Cantlay, Wyndham Clark, Jason Day, Tony Finau, Sung Jae, Tom Kim, former winner Si Woo Kim, Justin Thomas, Cam Young, Will Zalatoris are all in the field. You'll see Grazerman. Vegas is a former winner here. Ben Griffin and JJ Spawn both having good weeks at the Sony. Not sure how that's turning out as of yet because the third round isn't even close to being finished. Of note, at the Sony, my underdog picks have been fire. Undefeated through 2 rounds at least at the Sony. By the time you're all watching this, I've probably gone over 3 on Saturday. But at least on the onset of the third round, that play, the 3-leg play for 7-1, I think it was, is looking pretty good. So if you ever want to help out the show, go to Underdog right now, deposit with code Mayo, get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, and we'll try to find some more ways. The big one this week was targeting the high-end players and just betting them lower of their first round totals. It was like Hideki, Connors, Tom Kim, and Sahith, I think, were the 4 that I ended up targeting that wouldn't finish inside the top 10 after the first round. Like, it's a pretty big ask to be inside of the top 10, especially at a tournament which allows itself for more shorter hitters to be in the mix. And the American Express is no different in that sense. Like, when we get to recap who has won here over the years, it's a lot of long shots, including Nick Dunlap, an amateur at like 500-1 a year ago. Turns out he was actually pretty good as he won twice on tour last year, but even so, like Adam Long was 600-1 the year that he won. Andrew Landry, I believe, was 225-1 the year that he ended up winning. So, very rarely do you get your John Rahms at this tournament who just, to quote John Rahm, this is a fucking shit setup and a putting contest. When it's a putting contest, it allows for a lot more of the field to come and compete because tee to green will mean a little bit less so, and driving distance at this course, especially at the stadium course, is way lower than you would have at most of your normal courses. And even some of the shorter hitters are still in play for a lot of the par 5s at both Nicklaus and La Quinta, and even a little bit at the stadium course as well. And the stadium course, being a Pete Dye design, has forced layup, so the driving distance is not all that long. You want to keep it in the fairway and avoid those like huge cliffs. I forget who it was who was in the bunker. There's one off of, I want to say it's like 14 or 15. It's a par 5. If you miss on the left, you're just it's death. It's like a 60-foot bunker shot that you just have to get up, and you probably just have to aim for the bunker on the other side and then hope you don't scull it back over these little tiny greens. The greens themselves at La Quinta and the stadium course are really small. I believe they are 2 of the 6 smallest greens on tour. Both have a surface area of under 5,000 square feet. The Nicklaus course has larger greens at 7,000 square feet, although both the Nicklaus course and La Quinta last year were both inside the top 5 and fewest 3 putts per round on average. So even though Nicklaus has the larger greens, it's still really difficult to 3-putt them. They're not hard greens. The green speed here is either slow to average speed. They're POA trivials, so it's Bermuda grass when it comes in season, but this time of year, it's going to be POA, so like a lot like we see at Scottsdale. We'll see that next week? Is that next week? 2 weeks time. Farmers is next week, then it's Scottsdale, then it's Pebble Beach, or the other way around. I can't remember it this way. No, it's Farmers next week. Whenever the Super Bowl week is Waste Management, so that's Scottsdale. Then the Genesis is the week after. We'll see if they're still going to host that at Riviera with all the fires going on right now in Los Angeles. But Pebble Beach was moved up to that bye week in between the championship games and the Super Bowl, and that will be a signature event, which I think is an excellent spot for Pebble Beach being a signature event on there. We'll see if Scotty ends up coming back to play for this. So I talked about a lot of the big names who are in the field. Again, it's 156 players. A few other guys of note that are listed in the field right now. Michael Thorbjornsen and Jake Knapp are both still listed as playing this week. They both withdrew from the Sony Open. God bless Thor, because he was able to withdraw before lock on Thursday. Knapp was after the fact. He had a back injury, but they say they're both playing at PGA West. We'll see if that ends up being the case for them this time around. And then 2 Euros are in the field as well. I did not expect to see Matteo Manassero this early. I thought he would play in Dubai next week following the Team Cup, which is happening right now in Abu Dhabi. But he is coming over to play after earning his PGA Tour card. He wants to get all them points. And Victor Perez is also coming over. The Frenchman with his long cigarette probably is heading to PGA West to play from the European Tour. Both of them qualified through the DP World Tour qualification school a year ago. So that's what we're looking at with the field right now. You can just see the quick model rank. I'll get into the model rank a little bit later on. It's still liking Kitayama over the past 36 rounds, Griffin, Spawn, Xander, and Johnny Vegas. But I want to dig into the courses a little bit more. La Quinta is where the first-round leaders have come from each of the past few years. Just kind of taking a look back at the first-round leader market from the past few years. Zach Johnson was the first-round leader with a 62, tied with Alex Noren. Both played La Quinta. Bezadenhout, who ended up second here last year and took home a first-place prize because Dunlap was unable to collect because he's an amateur, but he ended up shooting. He had a 63 at La Quinta. Those were the three best scores the year before that. Davis Thompson was a 62 at La Quinta. John Rahm was at La Quinta. He and Taylor Montgomery also at La Quinta. Shot 64s. Matty Schmidt was also a 64 that year with Sam Burns, both at the Stadium course. And the year before that, Lee Hodges was the first round leader at La Quinta, and he shot a 62 along with Patrick Cantley, who, guess what, played La Quinta that year too. Lee Hodges is a really interesting name, though. He had kind of flown off my... Oh, he's not playing. Well, oh, no, there he is. I just spelled Hodges wrong because I'm an absolute moron. Lee Hodges in the mix again at Sony. No idea how he's going to end up turning out. I just forgot how well he had been striking the ball, that if he can actually putt a little bit, which is not something he normally does, at least towards the end of last year, had a really good swing season. An 8th, a 16th at the Zozo against a better field than even at RSM. He ended up coming 5th. We fixed the stats with RSM and Century. It was a shot length problem. We exchanged many strongly worded emails with the ShotLink team, so hopefully that is figured out. If there is an issue with the Sony, we'll have that rectified at least by midday Monday if you're looking for that. So we only get the feed that they give us, and then we have to reinterpret it to make it right. And we're hoping, we either get money back because we pay for this crap, that it would be nice that they could feed it to us, straight away with a good feed. But Lee Hodges is actually someone to look at. There had been a long-standing history of this event of guys that basically either played Kapalua or Wailea ended up doing really well at this tournament over the years. That's generally where you were looking at for people who ended up winning the event. I have the actual stats somewhere in the notes. It'll be up in the newsletter, and it will be on X as well. Friendly reminder to everyone, I'm posting my articles on X now. I'll usually have them pinned to the top of my profile. If you could please, once you see that it's out, like it, retweet it. We're really trying to get a movement going, and so far so good. I really do appreciate all your help on that front. So if you live in a state where you can't use code Mayo to help us out with Underdog, which will be funding us doing the live version of the Custies this year, by the way. I think we're going to do it in either June or July in Toronto. I have the venue, I think, in place. I got to find the date that works for everyone, and then we'll make that available for everyone. We need to get so many more Underdog signups and able to afford being able to fly everyone in, to be there, to hotel rooms, to rent the venue, because it's not like I want to charge like $50 per person to come. In fact, I'd probably rather it just be free, that you guys can come check out the Custies live, and we'll just have an absolute blast. We'll film that, and then we'll have a good time. Maybe we'll do it during Open Championship week at the end of July, that maybe we can do a live cut. We can do the Custies one night, then the next day maybe we do a cut sweat live in the same place, and we can all hang out and sweat bets together. That'd be awesome. So if you could use code Mayo to go sign up and play an entry, you get your free pick, you get your deposit bonus of up to $1,000. But if that's something you don't want to do, obviously the rating and reviews always help. But right now, if you can share around both the newsletter or just even on X, give it a simple retweet. It takes less than 3 seconds. You're probably following me anyway at the PME. That would really go a long way to helping us out and really gathering some momentum going into this year. Because right now I feel like we're doing pretty well. Obviously, I don't know how Sony turned out, but I got 100-1 guy in the mix. That's always fun. Let's go Eric Cole. Hopefully by the time you watch this, he's not out of it. Just give me a chance on Sunday. Even Keegan, if you can birdie a few coming in here on Saturday, stay within 5 of the lead, that no one's running away with it. Unless it's Eric Cole. If he wants to be running away with it, that's fine. But if it's Keegan, that would be nice too. Just have enough guys. Dunlap's another one. Just give yourself a shot at the top 10 or the top 8, whatever it might be, and have someone in the mix. That's all you're really looking for on Sunday. Some sweat equity to go along with it, and hopefully it turns out well. Back to the American Express. Nick Dunlap last year ended up being the winner. He did not play in any of the Hawaii tournaments, but I think it's 14 of the last 16. Only 5 players, including Sir Nick Dunlap, have won the American Express as their first ever victory. The other guys would be Adam Long in 2019. Whatever happened to Adam Long? That was Cuss guy. Cursed him to death. Johnny Vegas got his maiden win here in 2011. Charlie Hoffman in 2007. Hoffman just popped up at another desert course at TPC Scottsdale a year ago, and Arnold Palmer got his first ever PGA Tour win at PGA West in 1960. That's fun. Let's see. Do we have the Pete Dye track? They're not listing as Bermuda grass anymore. We got lots of notes here. That'll all be in what we're looking at for the 16 of the past 14 champions. There's 16 of the past 14. 14 of the past 16 champions played at least one of the first two Hawaii events to start the year. Before Nick Dunlap, it was, I think 2007 was the last time that happened. So just having a little bit of form coming in, or at least a few reps. Like one of the main reasons that I ended up on Eric Cole at the Sony was like, he had a bad century. That's okay. Sometimes you just need to shake off the rust a little bit and you get back to a course that fits your eye a little bit more than it normally would. So we'll take a look at the past champions at the course. You can always do this at the top. And if you're looking to plan out the one and done, as I keep mentioning, the season-long planner is at the very top in that tab. And if you are a member at Fantasy National, fantasynational.com/Mayo, get you 20% off. You can have access, as all members do, to the Fantasy National Leaderboard app, which I will tell you is the only leaderboard app you ever need to use of all time. It is by far the best one. You will never log back on to the PGA Tour app ever again. This one is way better. But we need to take a look at the course history, tournament history. At PGA West, again, it is the 3-course rotation. Nicky D ends up with the winner. We got a lot of the similar people from last year's tournament. Dunlap wins, and Bezadenhout, Xander I think he had a huge charge. He either had a huge charge at the end last year. I think each of the last 2 years he was kind of out of it and had a big charge. Justin Thomas was looking good a year ago until Nick Saban got on the line and was on the broadcast talking about, Alabama guy, Justin Thomas immediately topped the ball into the water. And I think it was the first bogey he made all week. But he was T3 at this event. That's Kevin Yu, ended up T3 as well. It'd be good for my best ball teams after Thorbjornsen and Knapp decided to WD, put me in a huge hole. Burns was winning this tournament until he wasn't. Water on the Peninsula Green on 17 at the stadium course. You can see there's Hadwin. He had the 59, obviously, in 2017, but he was T6 last year, T20 the year before that, T25 2022. Our guy, Michael Kim, was also inside the top 10. Ben Griffin, Keith Mitchell, Ryo Hisatune, JT Poston has been inside the top 11 each of the past 2 years. So different guys looking pretty good here. Davis Thompson had a bad Sony Open, but was runner-up here in 2023, which I vividly remember because I beat him and he lost to John Rahm. That was no fun that week, but Dunlap was 300-1 a year ago. That's crazy. He fired a third-round 60 with 10 birdies and an eagle, 5 shots better than Bezadenhout on that day, and that ended up being the difference as he struggled a little bit, then got it together coming back down the stretch. 2023, John Rahm was the champion at very short odds. He was plus 750. So you had a 300-1 one year, then a plus 750 the year previous to that. In the final rounds, he only had 2 bogeys over the final 36 holes. When Rahm's on, he's hard to beat. And it was funny because it was, I think, the year after he was complaining that it was a putting contest. Now, the year before that, 2022, you don't see the winner there because he went to live, although I don't think he's on live anymore. It's Hudson Swafford, won at 150-1. He had 1 par on the back 9 on Sunday that year. He went birdie, 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 bogey, birdie, bogey, eagle, birdie, par to end his day. It was just amazing. It was the second time that he had won. And you see Lee Hodges. I mean, I was talking up Lee Hodges. He was cut the past 2 years, was T3 that year. Interesting note. And even Will Zalatoris, who's in the field this week, was T6. And that is interesting because I believe it was the third round. He went absolutely nuclear on the greens, and he shot like a 62 or a 61 or something like that. But I always try to fade Will Zalatoris in these types of events in the outright market solely because he just never really keeps the putter going as well. Now, maybe he has fixed his putting stroke. Obviously, he's beefed up a little bit. He had the putter rolling round 1 at Kapalua, and then it kind of went away with the rest of the week. I'm still going to prefer Zalatoris at Torrey Pines and Bay Hill and major championships where the conditions are a little bit harder. I just don't know if he has the putting stroke in him over 4 rounds to compete when the winning score is going to be like minus 29 or minus 27, something like that. Now, he can get close. Does that mean he's going to get all the way there? Probably not. Now, 2021 was an absolute blast to watch. This was one of my favorite final rounds of probably the past 5 years. Siwoo went crazy in that round. It was Cantlay, Siwoo, Finau and Sungjae, I think, were like the ones floating around. Cantlay shot a 62 on the final day to get himself into second place, but Siwoo was just attacking every single pin. It was a sight to watch. It was awesome to watch, and he hasn't finished outside the top 25 in any of the past 4 years. He was bogey-free in his 3 rounds at the Stadium course. We know that he's played Wyndham really well. He's won there. He's won the Players' Championship. So he's won Pete Dye and Pete Dye correlated courses over the years, and that was the pandemic year, so there was no crowd there, and it wasn't a 3-course rotation. It was only a 2-course rotation, and 3 of the rounds were at the Pete Dye Stadium courts, hence all of a sudden Siwoo. So this year's a bit of an outlier when you see the guys at the top. We know Cam Davis, another really good Pete Dye player, has had success at Heritage over the years. I mean, Siwoo's lost in a playoff at the Heritage. We just saw Cantlay come 3rd at the Heritage. He's finished inside the top 10 a bunch of times. Doug Gim is another very solid performer at Pete Dye courses. We've seen that with his Players' Championships results, which is frankly shocking I love the Gim Reaper just as much as the next guy, but he's just played really well at Dye specific courses. So when you have more of them at Pete Dye courses, all of a sudden these guys pop up to the top of the list. And then finally in 2020, Andrew Landry. So Siwoo was 60-1. Andrew Landry was 200-1 that year. He's not even in the tournament anymore. That's how far he's fallen off the cliff. He actually finished second to Rahm, I think, in 2018. Ended up doing so. You had a 2-time champion, Hudson Swafford, as a long shot. Landry had a second 1 year and ended up 200-1. I'd be curious to see where Davis Thompson comes in with his second place finish in his career. And you see Tom Hoagie in this field as well. One of the nice things about this tournament is that where you do actually have a handful of very top-end players, like with Xander leading this field, and Cantlay there as well, and Tom Kim, and just a lot of names that you know that are probably going to be anywhere. I mean, Xander might be 9-1. Probably not in this tournament because it's more variant than a lot, so let's call him 10-1. When we get to the odds guesses, I'll try to lock down on this a little bit more, but for me, you would have like 5 guys that are almost a lock to be sub 25-1, that the Hoagies, the Davis Thompsons, and that quality of player all just get bumped down a little bit more. Like your Siwoos are going to be like 35 or 40-1. Maybe a little bit lower because he is a not defending champ, he's a former champion at this event. That some of these names that you would normally see, like even in the Sony field, that would have been between like 35 and 50. All of a sudden, those guys are between 50 and 80, and you get a bit of a longer shot when you know you're still getting a quality player on your betting card for the week, and a very equal and very nice DraftKings price if that's how you want to build out your lineups. So that's what we've looked for over the past few years in terms of how we're looking. Seb Straka is actually on a nice little roll right now. He had the T4 here in 2020, cut in T49, but he's off to a pretty strong start to begin the year. I believe that he was decent enough. Yeah, he was 15th at the Century. Good ball striking performance, broke even putting. He's having a pretty good week at the Sony Open as well. He entered the 3rd round inside the top 10. No idea what happened to Seb Straka. Let's see here. Just a quick check-in. He's on like hole 5 in the 3rd round. He's currently T14 because he is even for the day. Oh, there's Keegs. Keep making birdie, pal, and figure it out. Just stop making so many goddamn bogeys. That'd be nice, wouldn't it, if you could just stop making bogeys? He has 6 birdies today, and he's only -4. Like, get it together, Keegan Bradley. You try to figure this out. And, do us a solid and get back in contention. Maybe go win this tournament. Cash some paychecks for us. Wouldn't that be nice? This is the TGL presented by SoFi, golf's newest league. An all-new indoor arena-style golf where high-tech meets higher stakes meets primetime ESPN. If you missed the first match between my Bay Area Golf Club taking down the New York team, it was glorious. It was fast-paced. Even my wife sat down next to me and watched TGL. She does not do that. Even when we have big money on the line on weekends on the PGA Tour, not for her. She says, too boring. TGL, shot, cut. And it didn't hurt that it had the very handsome Ludwig Oberg taking shots and looking fine out there. According to her, according to me as well, according to everyone who sees that guy. A tall drink of water, as Jeff Feinberg would say, and we got some action this week. LA is taking on the Jupiter Lynx. And here's the greatest thing about the Jupiter Lynx. Tiger Woods is playing. We saw him on the broadcast week 1. He was talking. Now we get to see him swing a club. We have not seen Tiger swing a club in competition in so long. This is a perfect way to reintegrate Tiger back into our lives. We get to see him hit shots in real time live on ESPN. So you be there on ESPN or ESPN Plus Tuesday, January 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Very briefly about the courses, just to talk about them. You can find more of the course breakdowns in the articles. There's 3 of them, and listen, they're all really easy. The stadium course presents the hardest problem because there's blow-up spots, there's more water, there's 7 holes with water in play, there's over 90 bunkers, they're a bit small greens, and I already talked about the fall-off areas that you can have. One of the big things that I love about this course is like it looks like dead grass, but the rough area is like really burnt out, even in January in PGA West, and the greens are so luscious. The fairway is so green. It's just a really nice juxtaposition of colors on the screen. That is one thing I like about this broadcast. But you get the 2 rounds at the stadium course. It's par 72, 7,185 yards. The par 3s do play pretty tough. As you can see, the 3 toughest holes are all par 3s, all with a bogey rate. The top 2, I mean, number 3 doesn't have a huge bogey rate, only 7.5%, but because of the water, it has a huge double rate, 8.5%. I remember cashing a Jason Duffner 40-1 ticket here. I think in 2015, he had to chip out of the rocks on 17 in the playoff over, I want to say, David Lingmerth, a.k.a. Take me to your leader, to quote Cam. But yeah, you can get yourself into some serious trouble. Ask Sam Burns, that jabroni, who had a chance to win this, and then blip, didn't know he loved to get wet. I knew he liked to get wet. Didn't know he liked to get that wet when it came down to it. But POA overseed and the average green size, again, 5,000 yards. You have the Nicklaus course, which is 7,147 yards, still a par 72, just beat up on the par 5s. Basically beat up on the par 5s, score a little bit on the par 4s, and just don't bury yourself on the par 3s. La Quinta's a par 72. It's just over 7,000 yards, 82 bunkers, water in play on 7 of the holes, but it's super duper easy. Like, if you are playing, this isn't as pronounced as Farmers is going to be in a week's time, where the North course is just way easier than the South course. So it's one of the few weeks of the season I actually play Showdown each of the first 2 rounds and just build a lineup of guys who are playing the easy course. Now, for this one, you could go like a 5-1 if there's a player in particular that you wanted to target. Like, any of the good Pete Dye players can rip up the stadium course. Like Matty Schmidt, for example, rips up the stadium course here and is like dog shit at the other ones. It was just really interesting. But I would just be targeting La Quinta, and you'll get that rotation of players that will play the Nicklaus course. But when I talked about the first round leaders a little bit earlier, it's all guys at La Quinta because those low scores are available at all 3 courses, but the bogeys tend to come more at the stadium course, and even Nicklaus a little bit. There's just very few bogey opportunities at La Quinta, so that's where I would be going in first round Showdown, and I might even play as much in each round of Showdown, at least for the first 2 days before I get bored and forget about it on the weekend, like a lot of people, that I do like on my main DraftKings teams anyway. So that's just something to note as we're going through it. You want to hit the fairways here. Good drives gained has actually proven to be a very good stat at this tournament over the years. Mainly because, you got to hit your greens in regulation on these small greens. You don't necessarily have to hit the fairway. It's just you don't want to be way off of it because you could really get yourself into a hole. The average shot distribution is pretty equal because of the forced layup areas, that even though you can absolutely mash the ball off the tee, and all these numbers are from the stadium course, it's only because they're going to force you to hit to a certain spot. So driving accuracy would be something that you could look at. The problem is a lot of the bigger hitters are just going to take an iron out or a hybrid 3-wood, 5-wood, whatever it might be, off the tee, and they'll end up getting a good look at it anyway. And some guys might have to. So the accuracy numbers are just going to improve when you don't take driver every single time and you're a bomber. You have to club down. They'll just improve your accuracy. We see that a lot in less than driver courses. Driving accuracy a little bit lower, green regulation a little bit higher, telling you that the rough just really isn't grown out. And because it's a pro-am, it most definitely will not be grown out. Like, these rounds take forever anyway with the crappy amateurs. If you had like real PGA rough or even hard rough, the rounds would take 9 hours to complete. Like, I remember playing Hazeltine with Moose. It was a week after the Women's PGA Championship, and they hadn't cut the rough down yet. And like, I couldn't find my ball in the rough half the time. And like, I'm not good enough to get as much club on it as some people. So if I missed the fairway, even if I was like, 185 out, it was like basically taking a sand wedge and trying to pop it back with a full swing onto the fairway. Like, I wasn't making good enough contact with a 5-iron to take a rip at it out of it. And most amateurs would probably be, listen, these amateurs, like, they might like golf, they might play a lot of golf. I'm now finished I finished last year as an 8 handicap. Most of these guys are like 20 handicaps. So they're a lot worse than me, and I couldn't handle it. So I doubt that they would be able to handle the thicker rough. So short rough would be the way that they have to go through with it at this tournament, which really does benefit the pros in terms of the scoring, because they're just going to be able to easily, like, you're not going to see a lot of hosel rockets, and you're not going to see a lot of lifters or overshots of the green coming out of the rough, because they're going to be able to get the necessary amount of club on the ball without any of the blades of grass coming up in between it at a tournament like this. Hence why it ends up playing so easy. You see so few 3-putts. Now, these are small greens, and the stadium course did have I think the second highest amount of 1-putts of any course on tour. I think Harbour Town was number 1. Again, both small greens, but that's one of the reasons why. Plus, it's easy in order to make your putts here because of the flat greens. Another reason why they have a Pro-Am at this course. The average driving distance, 280. The average tour event, 283. So it's on the shorter side, but the green regulation proximity is actually closer to the pin, even at a difficult stadium course. Again, why the scoring can end up being so low. If you have your driver dialed in here, and listen, you don't need to be pin seeking at a course like this. You just kind of need to have it inside of 20 feet, and you're going to make a ton of putts at this course, as long as you're on that day. So that would be what I would be looking at. Just, good drives gained, decent putter, and I have that built into the model right now. Take a look at what I'm looking at. Approach 10%, opportunities gained, which is an approach stat at 20%. That's a scoring stat. I also put in birdies are better gained at 4%. I'm going to jack that up a little bit. We'll put it to 9%. Putting 10 to 15, both at 10%. Good drives gained at 14. Par 5s at 5%, eagles at 5%, proximity at 10%. These kind of all go hand in hand, because the only time you're really seeing the 200-yard proximity is on the longer, difficult par 3s, which you need, and that proximity to generate the eagle opportunities on the par 5. So those are like basically a combo stat, taking up 20%, but you need to be able to score on those, and putting gets factored in with the eagles and par 5s as well. So everything kind of bleeds into another. So you want to see guys that are consistently good across the board that way. When we saw the average shot distribution, at least from the stadium course, the proximity from 150 to 175 had the plurality along with 200 plus proximity. So that's what we're looking at for the model. As always, fantasynational.com/Mayo. You can go create your own if you like and get your 20% off and get yourself access to all the tools and the leaderboard app for iPhone and Android if you like. Kitayama being up here terrifies me to no end, but we'll just throw him out for a second because, it might be a really nice course for him. Who knows? It's not coastal. It's in a desert. Not generally where I love Kitayama. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's go see how he's done. Most of his wins, even on Euro, ended up coming at coastal courses, but he was good in the desert at Shriners. He was top 10. How has he done at the Wampo? Waste Management Phoenix Open, 8th and 23rd. Okay, maybe desert golf is a little bit more of his jam than I would have expected. He did miss the cut here in 2022 and has not played it since. He's only played it the one time in his career. So he rates out first. Griffin, Spawn, probably going to go back to Spawn again next week. I didn't bet him this week, but used him a ton on DraftKings, and he was inside the top 5 the last time I looked. Now, it'd be nice if he could lose to Eric Cole, but he is a part of the ticket that I have on Underdog on Saturday to go lower than his score. So if he wants to finish like 3 under, that would be nice to beat his score. So outside of him, Xander, Vegas. Xander's playing with a new driver. He did hit the ball 3 times OB at Kapalua. So maybe there's something off with his driver a little bit, but now he's had 2 weeks to tune it in. Didn't look good at the TGL now, did it? So sorry, our collective Bay Area Golf Club got the job done, paid out at plus money for the win. We still got them 5-1 at the overall. They are now the favorites to win TGL. Absolutely love it. Let's go, boys. Our Bay Area. I wish they had merch that they could ship to Canada. They can't do that. Vegas, Tom Kim. Vegas has won this tournament before, and he has the stats to play out right now. Tom Kim, Keith Mitchell, Grazerman, Harry Hall. Hall's probably another good look this week as he continues just to play really, really well. First and birdies are better gained over the past 36 rounds of any player in this field. The glove, Finau, Ben Coles, Eric Cole. Again, Sungjae, Thor Bjornsson. We'll see if he ends up playing. 4chan, Ben Martin, Andrew Novak, Echeverria, who again is playing well at the Sony Open. Just continue. Maybe he has made the leap overall because he had that win so early in his career at Puerto Rico, I want to say. Yeah, in Puerto Rico in 2023. And then he just like basically missed every cut ever. And then even into last year, at Honda, Puerto Rico, Mexico on the slower greens. And this is a bit of a slower green that maybe he could do a little bit more. He did make the cut a year ago at the American Express. Then he did absolutely like nothing outside of the alternate events. Then we get to the swing season, 11th, 1st, 6th, 2nd. It's pretty damn good. 32nd at the Century, inside the top 10 currently as we speak at Sony. I mean, those are all pretty good events in order to pile up some birdies. So he's worth a look, honestly. He's going to be buried down in the odds. I know he was a high pick on Underdog best ball drafts because he is going to play in all these tournaments, but still. Kevin Roy, the sexy Roy. He's not your Roy toy. He cannot putt to save his life. He's awful on the greens. But maybe there is one circumstance where he can get it done because his ball striking is actually quite good. But again, we have so few stats from this season. Now, that when the Sony gets updated, at least we'll have 2 tournaments in the calendar year to actually look at. But we can even go to the rolling report on this. I think that might work out a little bit better to gauge short-term versus long-term with all of it. And we're going to go to the American Express and check out how we're doing in terms of the odds. I might need to reload the page here. Yeah, we have to do that sometimes. My internet's not rolling so hot here, although I should have. There we go. There is the model rank for all of this, American Express rolling model. So it's from 4 to 12. And as you can see, my rolling model, we can edit this to, I want to put a little bit of faith into last 4, but I like to build it out like a little bit like a pyramid where I weight top 12 and top 24 the most, but I still want to get a good gauge of past 50 and past 100. And then we can update the model, and it'll give us the overall model results over that entire time frame. So Kitayama still ranks out number 1. Griffin and Glover, Xander, and Echeverria all move up inside the top 5. McNeely is there as well. This actually should be a really good McNeely tournament, honestly. Yeah, if you can putt that well. Chandler Phillips again, too, because he makes so many birdies. No idea how he ended up doing at Sony. There's some guys, like when you don't bet them, they're just kind of out of sight, out of mind for you. We'll see here. Let's see. Chandler Phillips. Wilson Phillips for hold on. Chandler Phillips was 5 over at the Sony Open and almost came dead last at the Sony Open. So that's always fun to see. He did have an 11th at the RSM. Had a pretty good swing season. See if he played at the AMEX. He was 25th here a year ago. So a guy who does make a ton of birdies. Again, if we're actually searching, it's going to be difficult to parse between Cantlay and Xander and Tom Kim and Sungjae and these guys at the top. You're going to pick your poison, the guy that you normally roll with. Justin Thomas, Sam Burns being another one. I'll probably end up back up on Burns. I bet him here last year. I bet him at Century. I usually stick with the guys early on in the year that I like. We'll see how that ends up going and see if I lose a ton of money on them. But other than that, like with so many long shots having hit here over the years, I think it really is worth investigating down the board. I mean, Rico, hey, my guy, is probably someone that I will go to. He was top 5 on the leaderboard after round 1 a year ago. I don't believe he ended up making the cut, but he's someone who just piles it up in bunches and he gets locked in. And let's see, American Express. He missed the cut a year ago at this tournament, but he doesn't miss a ton of cuts anymore. He made the cut again at Sony, so that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 with Sony. 13 cuts in a row for our guy, Rico. Hey, I like it. Probably going to end up betting him next week, and he's probably going to be like 151. I mean, maybe that's not even long enough down the board to give him a look. But that's the type of player that I would like. Matty Schmidt would be another one. Again, he has the good die experience. You get 2 rounds there. And even he is trending up and towards the model stats that we're looking at. Justin Thomas, he had the bad past 50 rounds. But other than that, over the past 12, he is pretty much locked in. If he's not one of the 3 highest odds guys on the board, I'm frankly going to be kind of surprised. Manticero is up there. If you believe in talent, that's a route you can go. Lee Hodges is most definitely making the list for me. I'm definitely betting Lee Hodges next week. I kind of hope he falls off the face of the earth in the final round of the Sony Open, so we get a better number at him, but he's probably going to open well north of 100 to 1, and that's the type of guy that I want to be looking at right away for this week. And we saw it with David Lipsky this week. I was able to grab him at 275 to 1, gave that out very early in the week. If you watched the research show last week, that's where I was at with him. Now, it doesn't look like he's going to do anything. He made the cut. Dude cannot putt. I think he missed 5 3-foot putts over the course of the first 2 rounds, and I saw him miss at least 2 more in the 3rd round. So that was bad news on his part, but I wasn't the only one who put him up. Other people saw what I saw with David Lipsky entering the week, and his number ended up, I think he went off at 125 to 1. So his number got slashed in half more. So if there's guys that you can get on early at the deeper odds, if you think that they're going to be popular or there's going to be steam that comes up, they're the guys to bet earlier on in the week. I made the mistake of betting Keegan a bit too early in the week at 28 to 1. He fell to 32 to 1. I mean, I don't like missing it. It's whatever. You lose the 4 points, but that's a minus EV bet. When he doesn't win anyway, I suppose it doesn't make a difference. But, I'd like to have that extra 4 points. That's really what I'm looking for. In terms of the betting market, you should always be fighting to get that better number. Carson Young is someone I could potentially look at. We know he's going to keep it pretty clean in terms of the driver with his accuracy, and he putts better on POA than anywhere else. We need him to make a few putts. His approach was terrible at the RSM, but overall, he's had some of these spike weeks. He's played some of the easier courses pretty well, and he was 17th here a year ago. I still believe that, I don't truly believe that he's going to get his first win before Cameron Young does, but it'd just be funny if he did. Cameron Young is in the field this week, too. McClure Messiner is there, but I still like to call him Mark Messier. He's having another good week. Dude's irons are absolute fire. He's going to be a part of he and Kevin Roy are now a part of Team Mayo where they pin seek and don't make any of the putts ever when it matters. Cam Davis was coming off a good week at the Century. We'll see how he ends up faring here. We can click back to, let's go past 24 rounds on the American Express model and just kind of take a look at some guys who are in form, birdies are better. It's going to be some of the lesser names in the field. But again, that's kind of what we're looking for right now to try to find some of these guys. Thorbjornsen, Harry Hall, JJ Spawn all rate out pretty well inside the top 20 overall. Cole's there. Matty Schmidt is at 21st. McClure Meisner, again, at... I don't know why I want to read it as Messenger every time I see it. I just throw a G in there. And I think it's because when I quickly glance at the screen, it looks like Messenger, but it's Meisner if you actually want to pronounce it properly. But you're not tuning in to the Pat Mayo Experience to hear people pronounce things properly. It's never been a part of our game. In fact, we intentionally pronounce some people's names incorrectly just for the lols, because that's where we're at. Seamus Power ranks up pretty high along with Meisner. Rico Hay, there he is, 29th overall. Kevin Roy is up there as well. Nicky D, I'd back Nicky D again. Dunlap, he was, 80 to 1 at the Century. I bet him again at 110 to 1 at the Sony. He's having a good week at Sony. Why not again? Montecero does rank up there, but he has very few events to look at. He has 24 overall, but I think some of those might go back 10 years potentially if we're trying to track him. Let's see, he has the Open, the Scottish, and the U.S. Open, and then back to 2016 before he fell off the face of the earth. Has never really had a ton of success on the PGA Tour. He was 8th at the Valspar, 12th at Honda. He made a Ryder Cup team, and then we never heard from him again until last year, and all of a sudden, Manicero's back. He's fighting for a Ryder Cup spot this time around. We'll see what he can do on the PGA Tour. So that's a few just overall. We take a look at good drives gained. Ben Martin, Ben Coles, Putnam, Sigmay, Ben Griffin, Xander is up there. Xander's going to win these tournaments. One of these years. Hopefully it's not this year because there's no way I'm betting him at 9 to 1. But he's up there in every pertinent stat that matters. He's the best player in the field. And then, he's T3 the past 2 years at this course as well. Now, Finau, Joe Highsmith, who had a terrible Sony. I wish I had actually got him confused with Jacob Bridgman like I always do and played Jacob Bridgman instead on DraftKings instead of Highsmith because Highsmith missed the cut. Not great, pal. Birdies are better gain leaders. Burns, Grazerman, Highsmith, Harry Hall, and Thorbjornsen. Echeverria, so Hoy, Echeverria. Grazerman, we saw him as low as 40 to 1 at Kapalua. It's a pretty extreme number for a guy who's good, but not that good. So I can see him falling back, probably 45, 50, 55 opener, and we'll see if he ends up popular again after a bad week. I think, at the Century. Maybe he was fine. I don't even really remember. I didn't bet him, so I don't know. He was 24th at the Century. It's actually not all that bad. Just about field average and everything. The driver was pretty good. When he's not just lapping the field on the greens, obviously he doesn't just come second every single week. So that's worth noting. But he can pile it up in that sense. Lauer does the same. Matty Schmidt is piling up a bunch of birdies are better gained. Siwoo is up there. Tom Kim, Sam Stevens, JJ Spawn. Spawn's hitting the list. If he wins at Sony, I'm probably not going to bet him, but as I said, hopefully he does not win at Sony, and we can wait for him here after a good, not great finish, potentially, from him coming out of the gates. So those are the two big ones. Good drives. Let's see, the proximity. Coles. Ben Coles actually rates out pretty well in a lot of these things. He's just a very average putter, though. Who's been the best putter? Todd, Burns, Montgomery. Montgomery's a really interesting one because Montgomery, I actually live bet him top 30. Don't think that's going to work out great because he is even par in his round. In the third round is currently T58. He'd have to go have a day at one point. Although Kevin Roy, there we go, back-to-back birdies for Kevin Roy to get himself inside the top 30, which was the bet that I had made from him. But Montgomery's irons have been really good, at least through 2.5 rounds at Sony, which you don't normally see, and he's like dead last. Robert McIntyre, Lipsky, Kevin Roy, and Montgomery are all in the bottom 10 putting of all of the players who made the cut at the Sony Open, and that's just not something typically you see from Taylor Montgomery. It's usually his driving is absolute shit, his approach is like slightly less shitty, and his putting is absolutely amazing. This is going to be the first time at Sony he has lost strokes putting in a while, but if his off-the-tee game is fine, which it actually has been at Sony. He's 34th of all players, 34th in approach, 32nd in approach, but 70th in putting, 73rd around the green. Like, that's usually his strength, and now he's actually hitting a few greens in regulation. If he has this figured out a little bit, and he gets back to this guy that we saw, that I bet at the American Express 2 years ago, all of a sudden we could be cooking with gas again with him. He doesn't even actually have to do a ton. He just has to make his putts. And he's made his putts at this course over the years. Now, he had typically made his putts at the Sony Open as well, but maybe it's just an off week. He's made the cut in both tries, a top 5. Taylor Montgomery, if he has figured out to not drive his ball out of bounds, just you don't need to be long here. Just hit some fairways, hit some wedges pretty well, those mid-irons, and make your putts on these easy surfaces. Taylor Montgomery's worth a long shot bet at this type of course as well. We've seen the upside that he can flash when he came off Corn Ferry. It just hasn't been there for a long time. So I think that's actually a pretty good look that we have right now. Hodges, hey, I wrote name down so quickly that it doesn't even make sense to me when I'm looking at it. I'll have to figure out who that person is. Oh, it's Spawn, Montgomery, and there is one more name that I wrote down that literally, here, I'll show you. Wrote down the name. I cannot tell you for the life of me who that guy is. Maybe I can try to figure that out somewhere. It looks like it says Fab. I don't really remember calling anyone Fab. You know what? It's probably Nico. It's supposed to be Echeverria. This is what happens when I take down notes while I'm talking at the same time and not looking at the piece of paper. You think it would be easier. You think I'd go back and look at it after time. But who has got that kind of time on their hands? I know that you have a little bit of time to watch this show. Think about how long it takes to record, do the research, then do all the editing for it. It's more than you think. Honest to God. Smash a like while you're here and sub to the channel. That will help us out so I can continue to fire out these shows. I love doing these research shows, by the way. It's at the part of the year where I'm just so excited that golf is back and it has my undivided attention, along with football, obviously. But the shows, I think, have been really good so far. And that Friday show that I've been releasing, maybe we'll continue to do more golf on that. It's just a little bit difficult. On the West Coast, it's a little bit easier. It's 10 a.m. Eastern time every Friday live on Mayo Media Network. It's usually football, and then another sport. We did golf one week, although Raza and I did talk about the Sony a little bit right after his segment on the DraftKings picks, but it's hard to make some bets for round 2, head-to-heads, whatever, because it almost starts immediately. There's no catch-up time to that. So if you did want to know what the bets are, you'd have to tune in live. And even if you tune in after the fact, please, again, share the show around. We stream it live on X. It's just little easy things like that, which will really help out the program, generate us more views, which means we can do more content like this overall. I think that's pretty good. Let's try to find anything else. The only thing that I wanted to look at was we can take all of this and just go scoring relative to par easy over the past, what do we got here, 24 rounds, and just see if it changes anything at all. Eric Cole ends up becoming the best. I could see Eric Cole winning. Like I said, he's very firmly in the mix again this week. The approach play is great. The off the tee is great. His chipping is absolutely terrible, but you just hope that he can hit greens in regulation, make them putts, and all of a sudden you're off to the races. That's what we're looking for in a tournament like this. I really wish I didn't fade Patrick Fishburne in the third round here. He's actually piling up a ton of birdies. Him and Spawn and Eric Cole. So let's go, Eric Cole. Make your putts. There's Lee Hodges, T3 right now when I check in. Russell Henley is also up there as well. Let's see. So on easy courses, Cole, Glover, Spawn, McNeely, Wyndham Clark actually gets a boost up there as well. Harry Hall, Xander, Michael Kim, Meisner, Rio Hisatune, Ben Griffin, Kitayama, Nicholas Echeverria, again, Tom Kim, Sung J M, Ben Coles continues to be there. Wacky Valimaki making his first start of the year. Lee Hodges actually pops up along with the Gim Reaper. Gim is probably another name if he's triple digits. If that's the way that you want to play that this week, I don't actually mind that. Carson Young was another one who does also pop up. There's Rico Hey, there's Sammy Burns. So it might be like Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, and 5 guys from beyond 100 to 1. We'll see where Adam Hadwin comes in because I might have to, out of principle, back him at a tournament like this. It's time to guess the odds with the American Express Field. I have it broken down into 4 tiers, at the very top of the board. Xander I have as the potential, he's going to be the betting favorite to open this with Scotty WDing. I have him 8 to 1 at the onset of this tournament, and then just 2 guys behind him. I have Justin Thomas at 12 to 1, Patrick Cantlay at 14 to 1. I think those are going to be the big 3 to lead things off. Then you go a tier down. I got Sung Jae at 18, Burns at 22, and Tom Kim at 22. And then there's tier 4. It's a big list of names, both between 28 and 45. And some of the guys who I have at 45 could open at 60 for all I know. And there might be a name that I'm missing somewhere along here that's just more elevated. Like I don't have Grazerman on here, but if Grazerman opens at 35, I'm not going to be super stunned. If Eric Cole is 40 to 1, I'm not going to be surprised. But I got Finau, Zalatoris, and Wyndham Clark all at 28 to 1 at open. Then I have Kim at 35, Cam Young at 35, then Day, Poston, and Denny McCarthy all at 45 to 1. Those are my guesses for the American Express opening odds. But here's the good thing. I'm not a sports book. You can go to a sports book that has better and or worse odds than the ones I just gave out, and you get to bet them there. That's the best part about all of this. Reminder to all of you to smash the like, sub to the channel, and tweet around, share, please, both the newsletter, which is free to join in the description, and on X when I release the articles. Help me out around there. Share it around. Smash the like to that as well, and use code Mayo at Underdog to get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000, and you get a free pick in the pick'em game as well. And there's best ball drafts coming up for both NFL and for PGA. The major one is already set. The scramble returns is already set. So there's a lot of money up top in these Underdog contests. If you use code Mayo, get that deposit bonus. You can essentially draft all with bonus funds as it is, which is highly recommended because it's like free money drafts and you can win like $50K. I would do that. I was you. Okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!